Let us now see how can we script our player's movement. This is the same thing as if we would do like this. Public float move force is equal to 20. Public float jump force is equal to 700, so on and so forth. So this is the same thing that we are doing here, but we are doing it, well, in a much simpler way in one line of code. So here we have three float variables: move force, jump force, and max velocity. We also need a private rigid body, which I'm going to name my body. And we need a private animator, which I'm going to name anim, and we're going to use them in order to animate and move our player. And here I'm going to create the awake function, where we are going to get a reference to these variables. And I'm simply going to create here, we are not going to use the update function, but we are going to use the fixed update, but I am going to create below it void initialize variables. And here we are simply going to get my body is equal to get component, passing the rigid body 2D as the component that we want to get. And our animator is equal to also get component, passing the animator, so animator, because we want to get the animator component. We are going to set this in the awake function. We also need one more variable, and I just remembered that. So we need a private Boolean variable, which is going to be grounded. So grounded. And this variable is going to tell us if we are on the ground, not if we are grounded from our parents. So anyway, this variable is going to tell us if we are standing on the ground so that we can know if we can jump or not. Now, in order to move our player, we are going to create here a void function, player walk keyboard, and we are going to call it here in the fixed update. So instead of update, we are going to have our fixed update, and we are going to call our function here so that we can move our player. So inside of this function, I'm going to create float force x is equal to 0f, and also a float force y, which is equal to 0f. We are also going to get the velocity of our rigid body. So here I'm going to say float vel is equal to my body, but we are going to get the absolute velocity. So I'm going to say matf.absolute, because this is going to give us a positive number always. And we are going to say my body dot, and we are going to get the velocity dot x, because we are going to use our max velocity variable in order to control the velocity of our player. And here I'm going to create float h is equal to input get axis raw, and we are going to get the raw axis for our horizontal axis. Get axis raw is going to give us a positive or a negative number, and it's going to be 1 or -1. So if we press the left arrow key or A key on the keyboard, it's going to give us -1. If we press the right arrow key or the D key on the keyboard, it's going to give us 1. And for what we are going to use it, well, simply we can now test if our h is greater than 0, meaning we are moving in the right side. So if we are moving in the right side, we first need to check if our velocity that we have here, so if our velocity is less than our maximum velocity, what we are going to do is we are going to set our force x to be equal to our move force. And also what we need to do is we need to face our player in the right direction. For that, we are going to get the scale of our player. So I'm going to say vector3 scale is equal to transform.local scale, but through our code. So our player is moving to the right side, so our scale x is equal to 1, and our transform local scale is equal to scale again. And because we are moving, we are simply going to use our anim set boolean, and we are going to set the walk parameter to true. This is what we are doing here. We are setting walk to be equal to true, and that way we are moving, or we are going to play our player's animation. Here I'm going to say else if our age is less than 0, meaning that we are going in the left side. I am going to copy this right here because the code is going to be the same, except our force X is going to be equal to negative move force, and we are going to set the scale to -1 in order to move in the right direction. And here I'm simply going to say else if our age is equal to 0, meaning that we are not moving, I'm simply going to set our player walk animation to be equal to false, so that we show that we are not actually moving. And lastly here we are going to take our body, or my body, add force, and we are going to pass the new vector 2. This is going to be our force X, and this is going to be our force Y. And this is how we are going to move our player.